Let's gonna introduce the last paper by Glenn Gray from California State University, entitled "Systems Development Projects: How Internal Auditors Can Improve Success Rates." Thanks.
All right, thank you. Sorry for the quick stop there. All right, so I'll go through this quickly. Let me just back up. So I worked on this project. There's four of us. This is was sponsored by the IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors. So this is part of a project, and essentially what we were looking at is what role internal auditors could play in systems development projects. Basically, how to improve system development projects. So I'm going to just skip over that real quick. The key is, and I teach IS classes, opposed to AIS classes, and it's always an interesting question. You know, you'd think by now we would evolve to the point where doing a systems development project should be somewhat routine, but you still see these huge failures. I mean, it's amazing. So in December of 2002, McDonald's abandoned a project after spending $170 million. Their plan was to sort of get data centralized. I don't even know how to explain this system. It was so massive what they wanted to do, but basically they would know the temperature of every fryer, French fry fryer. They would know the temperature of every fryer at any McDonald's anywhere in the world. That was only one part of the project, but I'm just showing you how massive it was. Well, at some point they gave up after spending $170 million. Salisbury, I guess it is, Sainsbury, however you pronounce that. It's an English company, spent 260 pounds on a project. Now, close to home, the LA school system spent $95 million for a new payroll system. And for months and months and months, it just didn't work. This after it went live, it didn't work. And one of the accounting firms was involved. I forgot which one, so I won't name names. I think it's the firm that doesn't go by its initials, but I could be wrong. But I don't want to name names. But anyways, after spending $95 million, some teachers didn't get paychecks, some got too big, some got too little. And they hired the same firm to come back, the same accounting firm to come back to fix it, which was quite controversial. And then the FBI, this was just in the Wall Street Journal last week or the week before, now they've spent $405 million of $451 million. They're 2 years, I think, behind schedule, and they're going to have another $100 million to spend. So you do the math, okay? Now, and here's the point of that one. This is why I find this one fascinating. You would think that they would be highly motivated, right, because of terrorists and all the rest of this kind of stuff. If they can't get it right with that level of motivation, it's kind of scary. And this is the most interesting statistic, this pie chart. So basically, the Standish Group, they publish this, I think, about every 2 years. 32% of projects, major systems development projects, are considered successful. 24% just outright failures. They're never finished or never used, even if they're finished. And the majority are what they call challenged. And you've probably seen these maybe at your own school. These are systems that had a high level of expectation based on their specifications, and management accepted something down here. They just declared it done. Okay, it does the basic thing it's supposed to do. It doesn't have all the bells and whistles, but it's done. And that's what they call challenged. Now, by the way, when I've made this presentation to business groups, my number one response is, this is too optimistic. Okay? They go, wow, if we could get a third of our projects to be successful, we'd be dancing in the street. Okay? So isn't it, it's strange that it's a sad sort of situation. So, thinking it from an internal auditor's point of view, from a continuous monitoring point of view, it's all about controls, right? Ultimately, it's about controls. So either red flags were going off, or not. But if the red flags were going off, either they were missed, dismissed, or just plain ignored. Does that make sense? I mean, it's kind of the bottom line. It's all about controls. How can you get $170 million into a project or $400 million into a project? Red flags had to be going off. So people are either dismissing them, missing them, or just ignoring them. And if we think of internal auditors as being the control experts, it seems like there's a definite match there. All right. Now, one of the things that we wanted to do as part of this project, and I'm going quick, I'm skipping over a lot of stuff here, but we wanted to know, well, why do things go wrong? What does the literature say as opposed to why things go wrong? And a lot of the literature is written in the IS area is what I would just call editorial pieces. It's some, quote, expert saying, well, based on my experience, it's these 5 things or these 10 things. So there's not a lot of rigorous research out there as to why these systems fail. But you get a really long list, however you put that list together. And here you just see some of them, very typical ones, lack of top management commitment or user buy-in or all this kind of stuff. So one of the side issues of this project was to kind of come up with our list through various ways of reducing the list, and probably more importantly was to come up with metrics. Because what does it mean, lack of user involvement? How would I know as an internal auditor or as any control person, how would I know user involvement is inadequate? What is the thing I'm going to be measuring? See? So that was kind of a side issue of this project. Okay, come on, keep going. Sorry. All right. So again, we saw internal auditors as the control experts. They should be the ones. And then kind of building on this project that is kind of justifying the project is based on a couple of other research projects that I've done for the IIA. The status of internal auditors has increased significantly because of SOX. So whenever you do research for the IIA, every page has to have 2 words on it: proactive and value added. Okay? So if you're doing any work for the IIA, always remember that. Every page should have the term value added and proactive. Okay. So again, be proactive. Now that you have this elevated status in the company, this is an opportunity to find another value added service to provide, being involved with systems development projects. So I think I've pretty well said this, when and how should the internal auditors get involved? What factors can they apply the most value to? We don't expect them to be experts on every issue of a systems development project. We did extensive literature review. We conducted focus groups, and we did a survey. There we go. We did a survey of the members. And this mostly reports on the results of the survey. So here was the 16 factors that we came up with based on kind of various techniques to reduce the big set that we had, because there was a lot of duplicates. There was a lot of duplicates. So, we were able to kind of boil it down to these 16. I won't spend time on these. The slides are available online. And we reduced it down to 5 sort of categories. And this is just a breakdown of how those 16 fit into those categories. I don't want to take time talking about that. All right. So the key, and this is mostly from the survey, was, the internal auditor should be involved kind of in the whole process. One of the kind of, you always get these, when you do this kind of research, there's always something that sort of surprises you a little. I mean, it seems intuitively obvious after you learn it, but when you first learn it, it's kind of interesting. What was interesting is that internal auditors, this is not the interesting part, internal auditors, the most frequent involvement on systems development projects is in the post-implementation review. That's not interesting. That's just a fact. Okay, the interesting thing is nobody wants to be there. The internal auditors don't want to be there. Management doesn't want them there, and IT doesn't want them there. But somebody believes it's an important thing to do a post-implementation review. But nobody wants to do it. So I asked, because I was, somebody must be asking for it, okay? Well, basically, IT has moved on. They don't care. They've moved on to the next project. The business unit that's paying for the project, well, it is what it is kind of their attitude. Okay, unless it's failed, but assuming they're using it in a challenge sort of way, it is what it is, and we got what we wanted. We wanted point-of-sale cash registers. We got point-of-sale cash registers. Maybe we're not getting everything we wanted, but it works, so we're kind of done. And the internal auditors don't like doing it because if they write up any negative aspect of the study, they're just basically accused of bayoneting the wounded. Okay? So one of the things that we pushed in our conclusion was they got to be involved way up in the very beginning. They need to actually be sitting at the table or adjacent to the table when whoever is making the decisions to fund projects is making those decisions. Okay? Now, they should be involved in the whole project from beginning to end. Now, we got a lot of pushback from our reviewers at the IIA because they felt we were really pushing the independence, objectivity aspect, that internal auditors have to be independent and objective. Okay. Now, internal auditors really don't care about that, but the IIA does. So, no, I'm just kidding. Okay, just moving on. All right. Well, a lot of internal auditors don't care, to be honest with you, but okay. All right. So that's why I said they have to sort of sit adjacent to the table. They can't vote on which project should be funded because that violates independence and all that kind of stuff. But they should ask, well, what are your metrics? How do we know this project's going to be on? We're not going to tell you what the metrics should be, but have you thought about it? You being the IT people, you being the steering committee, have you thought about what the metrics are supposed to be and what they're going to be? And maybe they could ask some questions about, if the metrics sound a little thin, or the milestones, not enough milestones. Okay, so the point is internal auditors should be involved in the whole thing from beginning to end in some monitoring sort of role. Now, how do you get involved? Remember, that was one of the questions. Do you invite yourself? Do you wait to be asked? All this kind of stuff. So we got a whole bunch of different kinds of comments on that. Some of the firms, it's actually in their charter that they're supposed to be involved. Other ones, they monitor activities that are going on, and they invite themselves to be part of these projects, and so on. So that's all that basically says. In other words, there are avenues to find out what's going on. There are avenues to get to be part of the project. Now, this was kind of interesting, and I won't bore you too much with the numbers. Well, don't even worry about the numbers. But I think this is kind of a key point. On the survey, we said, okay, of the 16 factors, I'm sorry? Oh, that's what he said. Okay. You said something. I know I heard a voice. All right. Okay. So of the 16 factors, which ones do you think you can contribute the most to? Okay. In other words, you got to recognize that there's a specific skill set they're bringing. And so was these ones. Quality assurance, project management kind of stuff, change management, monitoring, systems requirements, and systems development methodology. Now, I'm not going to go all the way back to the 16, but what the things that are missing are a lot of the personnel kind of stuff. The internal auditors don't see themselves as having any role in, is Sally Smith going to be assigned to this project, good or bad, that kind of stuff. So personnel type stuff, personnel resolution kind of stuff, if you remember that list, they just don't see a value added in that particular area, and that kind of makes sense. So another point is this. So there's 2 points, basically. One is where should they be involved? Because traditionally they're only involved at the very end. Well, it was clear, based on their opinions, they should be involved in the whole project. Okay, as monitors, all right? The second thing is, and this is another point which I haven't really dwelled on, is when internal auditors are involved in projects, even if they're involved in the whole project from beginning to end, because it does happen, but what expertise they're bringing to the table is application controls. In other words, if they're designing a new accounts payable system, what should those controls be? The point our report makes, based on the feedback we've gotten from the internal auditors, is they should also be involved in the systems development controls themselves. You see that? See, that's kind of the key point here. So, when you're all done, when you read the last page of the report, that's kind of the point. They should be involved throughout the whole project, always keeping in mind independence and objectivity, and they should be involved in monitoring the actual systems development controls. They're kind of that independent outsider who's going to say, hey, this McDonald's project is getting way off track, or this FBI project is getting off track. They have to be the people that say that throughout the project. Okay? And again, like we asked a couple of open-ended questions, and this was always the most common answer. We just need to be involved from the very beginning. And if you want to see the report, it's actually online now at the IA. And that's it. Okay? So hopefully that made some kind of sense. Go ahead, you can applaud.